absolutely embarrassing. Shrubbing, just drubbing, just tore. It was bad. That's all I've really got to say. I'm your host, Rev Deuce, here for the Dat Confessional podcast. Elias is going to be out today, but we're going to talk about the loss 26-14 to the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams, and of course, Dennis Allen over there on defense. And well, there's not a ton to say. I mean, when you have 4 offensive turnovers, it's going to put you in a bad spot. To be honest, I'm surprised our defense did as well as they did in these circumstances. And that isn't to say they did well, because when they do something well, they do something poor. For example, horrible run defense today. Absolutely abysmal run defense today. And yet they held the Bears to only 25% on third down, which normally we would take as a massive W on defense. They held the Bears to only 2 of 6 in the red zone. 33% conversion is a huge win. Normally we'd be praising these numbers, but overall, it's a rough day. We're going to talk about that and more. And of course, we'll end up having to talk about Spencer Rattler as well as other things. And to make my point very clear at the very beginning, before anybody goes crazy, I don't believe Spencer Rattler should be benched. And for those of you who are anti-Rattler, you might go, Rev, why the heck not? For those of you who are pro-Rattler, it's not even really about Rattler. It's about the situation. I don't see the benefit of starting Shuck right now. If you're going to do it, when would you start Shuck? You would do it when I said, 3 weeks ago. You would wait to the bye week. You give him the bye week to practice with the starters, and then he would start after the bye week. So he has 2 weeks. 2 weeks to do that. And that's if you were going to do it anyway. We don't even know if Shuck is NFL ready, and I talked about him being a guy that needed to develop. So, to be clear, I will be critiquing Spencer Rattler heavily today, but I am still of the belief that he should start next week. I am not over here talking about benching Rattler, and that's just my opinion. We can have chat's opinion as well. Feel free to share this out on your favorite places. Appreciate those who are here live. We already got 50 people. We're only 2 minutes in, and obviously some frustrated Saints fans, understandably so. Let's talk about how it started. Let's talk about the possessions as they go. So the Saints' first possession, which kind of like gave the feeling of how things were going to go, starts off with the sack fumble, which Spencer Rattler, coming into the league, had critiques that, with him being a smaller guy, smaller hand size, yada, yada. Something you had to worry about him is ball security, particularly when it came to fumbles, but obviously interceptions as a quarterback. But for him particularly, fumbles. And you saw that today. They talked about it on the broadcast, how, if you're going to have those move up the pockets, and he should be given credit for moving up in the pocket. I do think that his pocket awareness is an area that you can highlight of Rattler improving this year. Moving through the pocket, trying to navigate, make something happen, but just carrying that ball willy-nilly in one hand, Montez Sweat pops it, out she goes. Next drive, punt. Next drive, missed field goal. It was a long attempt for Blake Grupe, but I should note that Kellen Moore had words with special teams coach Phil Galliano after that miss. So don't be surprised if Blake Grupe is either benched or you see new guys coming in this week and getting kicker tryouts. Then you had the interception, the first interception of Rattler's day, followed by a punt. So your first 5 drives, no scoring. 6th drive, no scoring. And then you get into Dennis Allen's infamous prevent style of defense. And Dennis Allen runs cover 0 with a minute left in the first half, second quarter. And over the top bomb to Olave. Oh, look, we're back. I don't know. And again, I've given Rattler his praise when he deserves it. I don't think he should be benched, but I'm also not going to read those 2 drives that ended up happening and go, oh, we're back, baby. That's just Dennis Allen being Dennis Allen, in my opinion. And Dennis Allen likes to do things where he blitzes when he doesn't need to necessarily, and then he'll play soft coverage when he doesn't need to. And sometimes he just gets those wires mixed up. But, he did hold the team to 14 points today. So who am I to critique Dennis Allen's defense? But you do have a scoring drive to wrap up the end of the first, which did feel better. Like when you went into halftime, it wasn't that bad. It was 20-7. You get the ball to come out 20-14. Game is within reach. It's looking pretty okay. Kellen Moore comes out of the first half, leads in the third quarter. You drive down the field, 80 yards, you score. Previous drive, 91 yards. Seemed like they had found something there, but as we see through the rest of the game, it's just a little bit of nothing, to be honest. And I feel like especially Kellen Moore fell back into bad habits to put on the screen the stats. Alvin Kamara was back to averaging 2.5 yards per carry, but he was also doing things like, for example, on fourth down, let's just do a handoff from shotgun into the A-gap because manpower blocking is what Alvin Kamara is known for doing. Yeah, that was fantastic. That's what we need, a little read option from the gun on the fourth down against the Chicago Bears defense who's been beating you all day. So, to be clear, even though I do believe this is a game that you can really pin on Rattler as to having quote-unquote lost, Kellen Moore deserves his critiques very heavily here too. Not to mention, let's critique somebody else, Juwan Johnson. Team's down like 20 points out there flexing on the Chicago sideline after getting knocked out of bounds. Like, yeah, that's how you win football games. Can you tell that I'm a little frustrated with the New Orleans Saints? Just a little bit. It's a lot. And it sucks to see Kendre Miller go down. Hopefully we'll have some updates here this week on how he's doing, but having him go down was definitely a bummer. I mean, he had one good carry and then goes down with a knee. So hopefully we'll see that come back into a positive. If you're the Saints, you're hopefully seeing something with that. But as far as finishing up here, possessions, obviously we talked about the 2 touchdowns followed up by an interception. And what's wild is almost this entire game, and this has been something I've talked about all season, Spencer Rattler has had struggling ball placement issues, right? Particularly middle of the field, ball placement issues. Lots of times behind the wide receiver. That's the first interception of the game, is him again throwing a pass behind his receiver. And I know we've said on this show, if it hits you in the hands, you've got to catch it. And to a degree, that is a true statement. However, when you continually have the quarterback have the same problem over and over, we can't keep blaming wide receivers. And now it finally bit the Saints in the butt. Particularly it bit Spencer Rattler in the butt, turns into an interception. But then you finally get to a point where, okay, he didn't underthrow a guy on a deep pass. He overthrows Rashid Shaheed, leads to another interception. Then his final interception of the day, which as you can see on the screen is the second to last drive, or the last drive. He decides to try to throw a short pass over the middle into quadruple coverage. He felt the pressure and he fell to it. And the offensive line did not have a great game today. I would probably argue one of the worst offensive line games. Still not necessarily the worst, but they gave up 4 sacks. That's pretty bad. So it's definitely not something we're going to sit here and applaud him on. But these behind the receivers passes and today you saw poor decision making is really rough, and I hope that he cleans a lot of that up. Some of this, I've kind of lost hope a little bit that we're going to see it cleaned up. By the way, shout out to Raheem and Bazil. We'll get those comments here in just a second. For example, I mean, look, people are going to take this certain ways, and that's fine. I believe Spencer Rattler is who he is. Like, I see a lot of Rattler that I saw in college, and I do hope that he progresses through, but we're looking at a guy who has, got over a dozen games of NFL starting under his hat right now, and still things are plaguing him. Now, that isn't to say that there aren't guys in the league who've had major transformations going from one season to the next with things like mechanical improvements, right? Even people will throw out Tom House helping Drew Brees with his mechanics. Drew Brees was a Pro Bowl quarterback before his injury that led him to join the Saints, but at the same time, he needed help. Aaron Rodgers needed mechanic help. So things can absolutely happen to help Spencer Rattler. But right now, as things are at this very moment, Rattler is a liability when throwing to certain receivers in certain depths because he's consistently behind. And I don't know if you're going to see that improve this year. I would love to see that improve this year. I think maybe you see it next year, but it's just not happening right now. And when you've seen him go up, and this is one of those feeler things, the box scores don't back this up, right? But when you look at the Caleb Williams just made the play that needed to be made. Now, he did not have a great game. And I'm not trying to say he did. Statistically, Caleb Williams did not have a great game. But there were plays where when he needed to evade a sack, he did. When he needed to dump it off to get that extra play, he did. He got what needed to be done and then relied on his run game to do the rest, which is what the Chicago Bears need to do when you're running with Caleb Williams. You have Swift. You've got a great offensive team built to do the run. They did it today. More power to him. But not even just Caleb Williams. You go back to the Jackson Dart game. Just certain plays happening because it's clicking for him. And I want Rattler to get to that point, but he's clearly not there right now. And this is the first game all season that you can really say, look, Rattler just had a terrible game. There are games where he's had some good games. Games had some bad games. Today is definitely one of Rattler's worst games. Maybe the worst game he's had as a pro so far. Again, young quarterback stuff's going to happen. But, man, that was rough. Shout out to Chris Olave for trying to show up this game. I mean, got 2 TDs, almost had 100 yards, 98 yards receiving. And you have to think that that improves his trade stock if New Orleans does consider it. Word on the street is that they're considering an extension for Chris Olave, which I think there's a logic to it. I mean, I think that there's logic to both extending Olave and trading Olave. But either way, he's helped himself today because you finally saw the Olave that you saw the past couple years. You know, the guy who can threaten you in the intermediate deep parts of the field, the guy who can get separation and make the big play. You saw it today. Hopefully you see more of that. We're going to grab a couple of y'all's comments and chats. We're going to go through all these different notes and stuff. But keys for me is I think the defense had a solid game, not a great game. I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on that, and I get it. The run game for sure was a struggle bus. And I think a lot of that is just when it got away from them, the game was just away from the team. But I look at the important stats. I look at things like third down conversion. They held them to 25%. Love that. You look at the actual red zone, 2 of 6. Love that as a defense. Hopefully those are the good things you can build on. You love seeing Riley get his first interception as a player. Stutzman got a lot of snaps today. Chase Young and, Brian Brzee had good snaps together, which is nice to see. Clearly, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen with the young guys on this team. Some good, but overall, you lost the game by double digits. What else is there to say? Shout out to Raheem, who says the team is just ass, like tuna and box mac and cheese. Also, ranch equals sour mayonnaise. Shout out to Ross Jackson. Look, I would agree. Look, your record is who you say you are, and it was actually Spencer Rattler who said, I think it was this past week, was talking about we're better than where our record says we are, and I have to disagree with that. Like, I understand why he's saying it. I'm not even necessarily saying, he's wrong for saying it. You should believe in yourself. I would actually judge him if he said, yeah, we suck. I want him to believe in himself, but I do want to disagree with what he said. This team is not better than they played. This team is not better. This team is a 1-6 team. That is exactly who they are. And that's okay. I want them to win, right? I do. I want them to find a way. And y'all know, and annoyingly so, chat, the people who followed Who Dat Confessional for years know that if I had the choice between tanking and winning one game and losing 16, or if I had the option of, like, after the bye week, the Saints go on a tear and win like 4 of their last 7 or 5 of the last 7, completely destroying their draft picks, but would I support that? Absolutely. I would rather they win. But right now, you are exactly who your record says you are. You are a bad team. And New Orleans is a bad team. New Orleans is maybe not as bad as the New York Jets, who haven't won a game, but they're not far off. And that's just the dirty, dirty truth. Cayman says that Rattler could have thrown 6 pick sixes today, and that is not wrong. By the way, Charles Como, good to see you. Jerry 007, JLJ504, everybody in the chat today. Appreciate you, real Hoodats, because you got to be a real fan to come to the live show after that kind of a loss, and mad respect to you for it. But I do want to throw out to Bazil, says, say you're the GM tomorrow. What are the first 3 things you do to get us back on track for next season? Let me just be completely honest with you. There's nothing that you can really do to get a team on track for next season until really the offseason. I would say that you're listening to phone calls about Chris Olave because the stats that he just put up today definitely put him in a better position for trades. He's a much more desirable trade target because of trades. Nikki DeFish, also shout out to you for supporting Who Dat Confessional podcast. But in terms of what you can do, there's not much. Like, what do? You walk down and say, start Tyler Shuck? I'm going to be completely honest with you. I don't think Tyler Shuck walks in and takes his team to a higher level than Spencer Rattler does. Right? There's a value to Spencer Rattler's experience. The whole thing with Shuck is you like his trades, but there's a lot that has to be done. All right? Like, I say that as somebody who's like, hey, I think that Shuck is probably the guy for more in terms of, like, coming into this year. He definitely had the influence to pick him, but I think Rattler is the guy right now. He deserved to earn the spot. He got a chance. He earned the spot. So let him have the spot. If you're going to make that change, I don't think you do that till the bye week just to keep everybody appraised with the Saints' schedule, right? In terms of, like, what games are coming up. Here's the earliest I would start Tyler Shuck. That'll be week 12, November 23rd against the Atlanta Falcons. That's the earliest I start Shuck, which means that Spencer Rattler has got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Los Angeles Rams, and Carolina Panthers games to convince everybody who's against him to say, nope, you're not starting Tyler Shuck. You're sticking with me. And that's the only argument in my opinion, for Shuck, is you're giving him the bye week and the practice week. So 2 weeks with the ones to prepare for the Atlanta Falcons. And what other game do you throw him into than the division rival game at home against ATL? If there's a pressure cooker to be done, it's that game right there. So if you're going to do it, that's when. I think Spencer Rattler should not be benched. I think that you're making the team worse to bench. And as y'all know, I am 100% anti-tanking. I do not believe that is what good teams do. I do not believe it helps you. I believe the teams that consistently lose like that end up picking top 5 year after year, and you never talk about how they got better. Very rarely. I think that's how bad things run. So I don't think that you should just go to Shuck for the sake of going to Shuck. You want to win football games. I think Spencer Rattler right now is your best chance of what we know to win a football game. At the same time, if you lose these next 3 games, right? If you lose these next 3 games, yeah, don't really have a choice anymore. I think that's it. I think you're 1-9 if you lose the next 3 games. Clearly you're not saving the season, right? Shout out to JW from Montclair, California. Clearly you're not saving the season if you go 1-9, right? Which at this point, I know as crazy as it is here, technically it is within saving. Tampa Bay's running away with it. Spots 2 and 3 are pretty crap. But if you look around the conference, is it technically within reach still? It is. And I know most fans are going to go, who in their right minds would give a flying flippity hoodah about the chances of the division? Well, NFL teams. Like, until NFL teams are actually eliminated, and I say this from my experience working with like the Saints and getting to work with around the league, they do. Like, until it is actually written that you're done, they treat it as if they're not. Simple answer, because it's their job. Remember, it's the Saints will be here next year. But will Kellen Moore? Will Spencer Rattler? Will blah, blah, blah? You don't know. So you play every game as if it matters. Every single one. And I respect, that's what I love about the NFL. You don't have it like the NBA where teams are purposely like, oh, we're going to start Jethro Tull out there, a 5'4" guard who played in, Division III because, oh, he gives us the best chance to win. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. You're trying to lose games so you can get the better lottery pick. We know what you're doing. We're not stupid. Stop treating us like we're stupid, right? That's what I love about the NFL. For the most part, that doesn't happen, right? So keep with Rattler, stick with it, but that doesn't change that today was a horrible game. In terms of losing, the score does not really show how bad of a game it was for New Orleans. It makes it appear much closer. Offense is completely terrible right now. I mean, doesn't matter what phase, running, passing, play action, option plays, even their one trick play, they couldn't pull off. They tried to do and I thought it was a great trick play. Pass to Taysom, looks like a deep screen, try to lateral it to AK, and even that gets called back. So you couldn't even do that correctly. You're a bad team, right? I don't think the score perfectly represents where this team is at, which is why I'm not being as hard on the defense. If you would have told me coming into this game that Spencer Rattler has 4 turnovers and the Bears run for over 200 yards at 5.5 yards a clip, I would say we probably lost 30-10, 40-10, not 26-14. So in that respect, I'm giving the defense a modicum of credit, and they still did not have a good game because you gave up over 200 yards on the ground at 5.5 yards a clip. Like, that's just not good football. It's just not. Nikki DeFish says, I don't care if Shuck is worse. I want to see if he can be developed. And I'd make the move in week 9 if the Saints lose next week. So we'd have 2 weeks of film to look at the bye week. Personally, again, I think it's, and this is my opinion, I'm respecting yours. I think it's more important for him to get reps with the ones, build that continuity before his first game than it is to throw him into the Wolves and just see, okay, what does this film look like? Let's see if we can make edits in the bye week. I think it'd be better for him to have 2 weeks guaranteed, dedicated to the starters, and give him that run. But I also see where you're coming from. All right, either way, I think right now where you're at, your goal, especially if your name is Kellen Moore, is prove that you can improve this team, be better. And right now, your best chance of success is still Spencer Rattler. Long term, is that your best chance? I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying right now it is. And if you're the Saints, you need to do everything you can to win football games. I mean, it's all you can do is try to win football games. And if you look at the schedule, very winnable football games for the New Orleans Saints. It's Tampa. That one maybe is a struggle. The Rams just had their LA game. And I think that people are going to look at Matt Stafford throwing 5 TDs and maybe get a little disillusioned. I don't think the Rams are that good this year. They're okay. Then you got Carolina. Of those 3, you can definitely win at least one of them. I think the Rams game is winnable, but not likely. Like, I definitely think that the Saints go into the Rams game as an underdog. Absolutely. And the Carolina Panthers game is definitely winnable, and I would say the most winnable. So there's something to be done there. But it also says a lot that we're, again, looking at an offense that did not score 20 or more points. And for as much as people want to harp on the defense, which I understand, your offense scored 14 points. That's it. And had 4 turnovers. The fact that the defense only gave up 26 points is actually a miracle in and of itself. Maybe I'm being too light on these guys. And I look, there's problems, right? Justin Reed did not look good at safety. He did not. He gave up a lot of passes today, had a couple plays, but overall, he seems a step behind. I think that at this point in his career, he's lost the it factor. I just don't think it's there anymore. Riley had a couple of good moments, also some struggles. McKinstry clearly is playing trail a lot. I think he's solid, but he's got his plays, and they're young guys. They're going to have some of those sometimes. Alontae Taylor had a couple of great plays in the box. But overall, I mean, are you going to rely on Alontae Taylor? No. So all of this said, I'm not trying to make a pass for the defense. I'm simply saying that when your offense scores 13, 21, 13, 19, 26, 19, 14, that's your problem, right? That's the problem. We can talk about giving up 44 to the Seahawks or 26 to the Bears, whatever. But your problem in the NFL is the fact that you're not averaging 20 points a game at the minimum. You should average 25 points a game at the minimum if you're going to have a winning record. And if you don't believe me, go check out ProFootballReference.com. Great resource, completely free. You don't have to pay a dime. And you know I like saving everybody money. Go over to Pro Football Reference and you find me the last playoff team that averaged less than 25 points a game consistently. You're going to have a real tough time finding that, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen or hasn't ever happened, but I'm saying consistently, one key to success in the NFL is scoring 25 or more points on average for an offense. And they are nowhere near it right now. In fact, through 7 games now, you have scored 125 points. That's it. That's not good numbers, ladies and gentlemen. That's really, really low, while allowing over 180. So obviously a big point discrepancy there. So last year, just to give you all numbers, Dennis Allen and Darren Rizzi combined have a point differential of -60, as in they allowed 60 more points than they scored. So far this season, Moore and his team has allowed 61 more points, right? So their offense has scored 61 less points through 7 games. And yet last year, what you talk about being the worst Saints teams we've seen in a long time, had a ratio of -60. So when I tell you it's bad right now, that's how bad it is. All right, I'm not just trying to blow smoke up your butt. It's that bad right now. -61 through 7 games is worse than 17 games last year. Now, that, of course, maybe they can pull some wins and they can change that around, but that's where they are right now. And as the famous coach once said, you are who your record says you are. Charles Como says, you know your team is bad when you don't know what the division looks like. Besides the Saints record, I have no clue what's going on. Short answer, Baker Mayfield has it, and he's winning. Not CJ. I almost went the wrong direction. But I'll actually pull up the Carolina Panthers game so y'all can see the stats yourself if you're watching live. But Mr. Bryce Young getting a 13-6 victory today. Andy Dalton did have a few passes today. But Bryce Young slowly growing over in that part of the world. But Jets 0-7. Panthers are 4-3. Panthers have a winning record. Now, Godfather says, told you dudes, I predicted this. Eat crow and how bad Loomis has done this franchise. While I'm very much anti-Loomis at this point, I can't. One, there's no crow for me to eat because what has he done that made this year a problem? It's not like he picked Spencer Rattler. It's not like he picked a lot of things. He leaves that up to the coaches. Now, if that's the problem that we want to say, like his problem, that being Mickey Loomis, is that he allows the coaches to have full control over the roster, fine. I agree. I think it's time to move over from Mickey Loomis. But I certainly can't look at today and go, damn that Mickey Loomis guy. No, I'm definitely going to put the blame squarely on guys like Dennis Allen and now Kellen Moore and Spencer Rattler. And again, while also still wanting to move on from Mickey Loomis, like personnel decisions, he's that type of GM. He's always left that completely with the coaches. And that's both a good and bad thing. When you've got an elite head coach, that's great. When you do not have an elite set, man, it really shows as a flaw. So here we are. He drafted these players and made poor moves. He didn't draft them. That's not what he does. Now, I get it. He's a general manager and that goes on his docket, but that's not his job, nor does he really interfere with that at all. Never has. And as someone who's covered the team, I can tell you that's not what he does. That's not his thing. And if we want to say, hey, it should be the next GM's thing, I'm with that. But you can't blame a guy for something he doesn't do. Right? He goes after the personnel that his coach says we need. And then he makes those contracts. So no, it's not on him for that. But if we want to say we need a GM who's better, has more modern football IQ, makes better deals, actually is more involved in personnel drafting, I'm absolutely there to have that conversation. I'm not going to blame the guy for something he had nothing to do with, though. I will say it's time to move on from Mickey Loomis, but I've been saying that for years. And that's just how it goes. Nick says definitely play better with Reed on the field or without Reed on the field a couple weeks ago. I do think that he's just a veteran that doesn't have, that half step you need in the NFL. It's kind of like what I've said about Rattler. Like a lot of Rattler's throws and decision makings are just a half second slow, which is why sometimes, passes can be behind or late or overthrown or whatever. It's just whenever he makes that decision, sometimes it's just that literal 0.5 second difference, which is when you see him today having a lot of these sacks. A lot of those passes were there. You just got to make it happen. You definitely defended Loomis past few years when I attacked him in DA. I've defended him exactly on what he should be blamed on. That's my thing. If you're going to blame somebody, blame it accurately. Saying that it's Loomis's fault that we drafted, Pete Warner is not factual. It's just not. Now, we can talk about what he does have control over, trades. Lattimore trade definitely worked out for New Orleans, but we can argue the Lattimore contract should have never been signed. Those are real conversations to be had. Completely okay with that. But I've always kept a pretty even keel, and I have for years with receipts out there, both on X/Twitter and Who Dat Confessional, called for Mickey Loomis's head for a couple years now. I've definitely done that. So it's about what style of GM you want. What he does well, what he doesn't. So DA is Miller's kryptonite. He was healthy until today. Well, it was funny. It was a couple of people, I can't remember if it was Chris Rugaroo, shout Rugaroo, but who said that DA has got Rattler and Miller looking like 2024, and sadly, that definitely seemed to be the case. But shout out to Kendre Miller. Hopefully he returns healthy because as much as I love AK, if Moore is going to continue to force this style of run, AK doesn't need to be getting the ball as the primary running back. Miller does. If Kamara wants to be on this team, I say he can still be a good player. But it's very clear that if Moore's just going to be stubborn and say, this is the system that I run, and my name's Kellen Moore, and I know what I'm doing because I won a Super Bowl. Hey, cool. I haven't won a Super Bowl. Run what you want to run. But AK doesn't fit it. He just does not. Running A-gap power out of shotgun with Alvin Kamara is not going to be productive football, hence why it didn't work today and why it's not worked all year and why Alvin Kamara is averaging 2.5 yards a carry. You're going to need to run outside zone with AK like you did a couple weeks ago and they went off, or just stop and put him in the slot, be the secondary back, as in make him Alvin Kamara like year one, which we talked about on this show. You make Kendre Miller the Mark Ingram, you make him be the head runner, and then you use AK as a positional guy. It's the same way with aging. Remember, you start off as a baby, you make stupid decisions, then you get old, and you're basically 80 years old. You're basically a baby. You're just a 6-foot tall baby now. Same thing in football years. He was a baby then. He's back to being a baby now. If that's how you want to play this team, Alvin Kamara needs more time in the slot, even out wide, and then as the secondary running back, not the guy that it's 4th and 2, and we're trying to run out of shotgun, an A-gap run up the middle. That's just... And again, that's not a shot at AK. The dude's 30-plus years old. That was never his running style to begin with. Stop it. Like, I would much rather just put Taysom Hill right next to Spencer Rattler and do it that way. Like, if honest to God is what you want to run QB power, which they did that today, by the way. They did run a QB power with Taysom Hill today. If that's the heck what you want to do, then just do that. Just do that. Stop trying. That's my biggest complaint about Kellen Moore. That is my biggest complaint about Kellen Moore. He wants to do his thing. And you know what? Next year, that might be okay. When he's got more people that are for his thing, that might be all right. But right now, he's not all right. And he's doing it exactly how Kellen Moore wants to do it. And that's how we're going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. As Charles says, where's the space for AK? That's not how Kellen Moore plays this game, apparently. Whatever. Now, Rainey says, realistically, there's no point tanking. High draft picks aren't guarantees. I agree. Key adds, definitely rebuild. Time to let people go. Buy Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, and most of the D-line. Hey, if any of those guys will be veterans who are cheap, I'm fine with it. But I do agree. If anybody is a high-profile, pay the guy a lot of money type of guy, yeah, I'm ready to move on from him. And look, as much as I love Cameron Jordan, great first game. Cameron Jordan is still very good against the run, but he should not be on pass reps anymore. And I hate to be that guy because I would love Cameron Jordan's stats to continue to rise. I would love Cameron Jordan to, hit some higher barriers because, honestly, I believe he's had a Hall of Fame career. At this point, I almost feel like he's hurting himself. I really do. I know he's got 2.5 sacks this year. He'll probably end up with, 4 to 5 by the end of the season, right? But he hasn't made a Pro Bowl since 2022. And he hasn't looked like a Pro Bowler since then. He's 36 right now. And the thing is, people are going to remember the last few years. Look at the disrespect Drew Brees gets now, right? You pop on any major media right now. Anytime Drew Brees' name gets brought up, like with the whole Philly thing that was going on, everybody dogs on him. Oh, Brees was nobody. He was a system quarterback. Brees benefited from a dome. Nobody remembers when Brees was elite. They remember the last couple years of Brees where he still put up good numbers, but clearly didn't have it anymore, right? And again, that isn't mean to Drew Brees. Drew Brees' worst is still significantly better than anything that we've had the past since he left. It is. But people are going to remember you as the last person they saw. And if you're seeing 36-year-old Demario Davis, you're not putting him in the Hall of Fame. You're just not. Look. Demario Davis had a record, NFL record-setting kind of string. For those that don't remember, from 2012 to 2021, he had a minimum of 7.5 sacks. That is 9 years, and there's like 5 guys in the history of the NFL who have done that. That's insane. From 2012 to 2022, sorry, not 2021, 2022. 10 years. That is unheard of. Guys don't do that. And yet, are people going to remember that? Probably not. Probably not. At that point, he was averaging 10 sacks through that range. That 10 years, he averaged 10 sacks a season, averaged 13.5 tackles for loss a season, averaged 37 tackles, averaged 20 QB hits according to SIS, right? Averaged 5 pass deflections and 1.5 forced fumbles. Nowhere near that level of player now. So if we're at the point where it's time to move on, I definitely get that. I definitely get it. Now, Godfather says might as well trade for a veteran QB like Flacco. And of that, I would personally disagree. I would only do that if you really believe this team could take it to another level and win the division. I don't think having Flacco helps there. Now, did I enjoy the, Ben Gay Bowl between Aaron Rodgers and Joe Flacco, who could, have knees last long enough into the fourth quarter to win a football game? Yeah, well, I definitely enjoyed the game. It's further proof that the best thing you need to do to improve is to leave the Browns. In fact, what New Orleans should do is trade Spencer Rattler to the Browns and then trade back for him a week later. He'll probably be a superstar quarterback. But at this point, you're 1-7, 1-6. Sorry, who are you trading for and why? At this point, is it really benefiting you? It's not. Spencer Rattler is who he is. If he's going to develop, he's going to develop. If he's not, he's not. But who are we really showing out for? And who are you trading for? At this point, let that go. That's just my take. I mean, Saints are who they are, and either they're going to get a quarterback in this draft or they'll get a quarterback in this draft and a quarterback in free agency, and we'll go from there. But this deep in with this type of win-loss record, yeah, what are you doing? Who are you helping? Blake says, people still talking about developing Shuck, but Rattler is younger and has less than 1 year as a starter and has shown certain traits to develop and build from. People want instant results. Well, Blake, let me counter that. Rattler has shown a lot of negative traits that have not improved. Shuck has shown positive traits that you can build from. As we've discussed, if you're a year younger, why does that matter? It's the quarterback position. The average retirement age of quarterback in the NFL is 35, which means Shuck, at this point, could still have 2 full-length NFL standard contracts of starter experience. You don't give a heck that he's a year older than Rattler. You give a heck who's going to be better. Rattler has got things he's done better. I think his pocket movement, his pocket poise is definitely improved. I think that's great. His pre to post snap reads have not improved overall. His ball placement is definitely not improved. And that's one thing those are 2 things that Shuck has definitely got better preseason and collegiate tape than Spencer Rattler. Ball placement is definitely much better than Spencer Rattler. I think the main things for Rattler better for Tyler Shuck. Main things for Rattler that I would, and again, I said at the beginning of the show, Rattler needs to be the starter. I love Rattler has better pocket awareness and pocket poise right now. And I think that's a big moment. And I think that's a big critical factor of why you keep him in above Shuck. But long-term, traits-wise, no, I definitely still lean Shuck from everything that I've seen limited time. And Shuck could also come in and fail. There's no guarantees with Shuck at all. But I think Rattler is exactly who we think Rattler is. Right. Spencer Rattler has a good team around him on offense. He does. He's got talent around him. And is what he is. That's fine. I think Spencer Rattler can easily be a guy who's in the NFL for 10 years. I just think it's much more Jacoby Brissett than it is Baker Mayfield. And that's okay. It's not shade. I mean, the dude was also good in college, but never great. Hence why everybody kept going in front of him. That's why people binged for guys who are in the league now. It's not like Spencer Rattler doesn't know these guys. There's a reason those things happened. That doesn't mean Spencer's not talented. He absolutely is. I just think he's 10 plus years in the league talented, but comes in as a starter here and then as a backup there. Chance to be a starter again, then a backup over there. That's what I see with Spencer Rattler. So Blake was wasted a 2nd-round pick on Tyler. Oh, we can't go next year with a top pick and not know what we have in Tyler. I don't agree that it's a waste if you don't start him. But at the same time, you the worst thing you can do for a rookie quarterback, and this happened last year to Rattler, and I think it's fair to bring up. You put in a guy before he's ready, you a lot of times can cause more harm than good. And I think Rattler has got some of that, where there's just bad things that he's learned being on bad teams that just persist. Whether that's justified or not, we could debate that end of the day all day long, right? I still think Spencer Rattler is talented. And as I've said for 2 years now, he's a quarterback that's talented enough to win with, but he's not a quarterback to win because of. And I don't think through almost a traditional full season's worth of start now for Rattler that's who he is. That's okay, right? He's still valuable. I still want him on this roster, and I still want him to start right now. But I think there's little doubt that you have to start looking to the future. You got to start looking to the future and see what else can be there. And I'll say this truthfully, if you draft a quarterback, let's see that you get a top 5 pick and you get that guy that you really like, and we can argue over how good the quarterback class is, blah, blah, blah. I want Spencer Rattler here next season fighting for that starting position. And if he wins it, awesome. I think he deserves that chance. But I also think that a lot of the flaws that you would see improve for a lot of quarterbacks from year 1 to year 2, you're not seeing improve for Spencer Rattler. And that's part of why, even though wins are not a QB stat, collectively, he's, 1-12. His teams are 1-12 because it's that special thing. Here's another example. He's played 13 games as a starter. Not a single game-winning drive, not a single fourth quarter comeback, not a one. Right? Now, that isn't to say that that's everything in the world. It's not. But Drake Mays had game-winning drives. Spencer Rattler hasn't. Caleb Williams, who you just played, has multiple game-winning drives through both seasons. Spencer Rattler doesn't. Even Bo Nix, who people like to make fun of as being overdrafted and crap, has got 5 game-winning drives in his 2 seasons as a starter. There's just a certain thing that guys either have or they don't have, and Rattler has not shown having that thing. And the annoying thing is it's not really a tangible thing. You can't go, oh, there it is, I see it. Like when you do scouting, you look at traits and you hope to find traits that translate into positive gameplay. And Rattler has some of those traits. Like I said, he is great in the scramble drill, though the overthrow on the Rashid Shaheed interception would counter that. But I think in terms of pocket poise, scramble drill, he plays really well in those situations. And I think he should be given credit for that. But that extra step, when you're talking about the guy who just, the difference between a quarterback you win with and a quarterback you win because of, you don't see that in Spencer. You didn't see it today anyway. And if it starts to show at the end of the season, awesome. Absolutely fantastic. I want him to, because that means the Saints have a franchise quarterback. Just don't see it right now. This is the worst game of his NFL career, debatably. Hopefully next week, that's not the case. Going to have a tough matchup against Tampa Bay. Shawnee says Juwan's a disappointment. Man, Juwan frustrates me so much, I don't even want to talk about him. Like, I talk about wanting Spencer Rattler to be here on this team next year and be fighting for a starting position next year. Not Juwan Johnson. No. I'm so done. My final, straw that broke the camel's back cliche, Juwan Johnson. Today, losing by double digits, getting knocked out of bounds, and then getting up and flexing on them. Sit yo broke ass, can't catch shut up. That was my final moment of Juwan Johnson. You're not going to hear me saying nothing. Juwan Johnson can come out next week, catch 150 yards on 9 catches and 3 of them are TDs. And I'm still going to say, get his ass off my team next year. I'm done with Juwan Johnson. I am personally finished. I can't separate the emotion from the facts anymore. Not with that one. Spencer Rattler deserves to me, should still be starting, even after one bad game, and see if he develops. Juwan Johnson, I'm done. Absolutely cooked. No more. That was it. And people can feel free to be in the chat right now and go, you know what? I don't think that's right. I think that's stupid. And I'm here with you. Cool. I respect your opinion. I'm done with Juwan Johnson. And Blake, we did talk about Justin Reed being a struggle bus earlier. Yes, we did. 007 says it's definitely unwise to not see what Shuck has right now. We need to know what each guy has been or has by year's end. And I agree with that. But again, that goes back to my theory. And I'll say it one more time because we have a lot of people coming in live new. For those who listen, appreciate y'all listening on iHeart Radio, Spotify, iTunes, etc. I would say you do that after the bye week. Here are the 2 big advantages to the bye week theory. Number 1, you give 2 weeks to lead into a home game because the only other home game you have against is Tampa Bay next week. And I just think that's a really bad idea to start him against Tampa. I really think that's a bad idea. So then after that, you have 2 road games. I really don't like the idea because you have travel time. You have less practice. I don't like the idea of trying to get him starting in those games. So bye week gives him 2 weeks with the ones at home and time to work on him. And then after that, if you started in them, you have 7 games. 7 games is more than enough time to build a scouting report on Tyler Shuck for his rookie season. Just like last season, and I know I'm not saying that Spencer Rattler couldn't have got better, but Spencer Rattler put up a full film study last year in 6 games. He appeared in 7, started 6. That is ample tape to build a scouting report off his first year in the NFL. And you can take those traits and see how can he do better in year 2, and he has done better in year 2. He's just not doing much better, but he is doing better in year 2, and credit should be given for that. I just don't think that he's shown the quote-unquote it factor in year 2, but he's definitely gotten better, right? So yeah, you give those 7 games just to see what is there. If you really believe that he could be a starter in the future. If you don't believe he could be a starter in the future, then yes, you did waste that 2nd round pick. Oh well, you start Rattler the whole season and see what happens. But Rattler's definitely improved from last year in some ways, right? Now, some ways he hasn't, some ways he has. And I think he should be given credit in the ways that he has. I know it's going to be ironic saying this on today's episode, but he's gotten better with turnovers this year, right? Last year he had he had twice as many turnovers as he did touchdowns, if we're including fumbles. If I'm remembering correctly, because he had 5 interceptions last year as a starter, and I think 5 fumbles. If I remember correctly, that's 10 total. He had 4 passing touchdowns, and did he have a rushing touchdown last year? I don't think he did. So yeah, I think he had a 2-to-1 turnovers to touchdowns. That's bad. Well, that's not happened this year. He's been significantly better in that regard. Yeah, significantly better. Give him credit for it. I think he should be. I'm big on giving him credit for his improved pocket awareness. I think he's done a great job of improving in that area. It's one of the reasons that his pressure and sack rates are lower than last year. It's because he's actually improved. I think he should get credit for that. I also think that he's got some areas that he's not improved, like ball placement. And that's a kind of a big deal as a quarterback. When you're continually throwing behind guys, eventually it's going to bite you in the ass. And it did today. So that's something that he's got to get better at. And if he doesn't, then you have to look to the next guy. Because if you just can't throw a well-placed ball in the NFL, you're just not going to be a starter very long. You're just not. And good teams are going to take advantage of that. So, I'm curious to see what we look like next week. So I'm curious to see what we look like next week. Smooth says you have Alvin trying to block linebackers. That's normal. That's not like a bad thing. That's called normal blocking. That's not a big deal. So that doesn't bother me. That doesn't bother me at all. Shams says like calling plays for the sake of calling plays. No plans or strategy behind it. Discombobulated play calling leads to a lack of execution. My only argument with that is there were some really good play calls today. Just not good execution. And we can debate, who's at fault. I think that there's enough fault to go around for everybody here. I think there's plenty of fault to go around for several people. But, yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at with that. We'll see where it goes. I love y'all, and I appreciate y'all. Who Dat, God bless. Thank y'all for being the best fans that one can ask for. And thank y'all for supporting the Who Dat Confessional podcast, even in a 1-6 awful season. Shout out to Dickie the Fish, Bazil, and Raheem, who donated to support. Appreciate y'all. Who Dat, God bless. We'll catch you on the next one.